In this module, we'll turn our attention to the second step in the decision process, Recognize. We'll learn about the purpose and the features of the Recognize page while I demonstrate how to use it. In the decision process, the purpose of the Recognize step is to find similar events to the one you're working on so that you can select one to use as the basis for your decision. It's modeled after the behavior of an incident commander who mentally compares what he's facing now against past experiences. How does AlphaACT HAZMAT do that? It searches the knowledge base for events with characteristics that are similar to the conditions you entered. Then it computes the likelihood of the events matching current conditions and presents the top 5 events. Depending on how much information is initially provided the system, the first events presented may not be close matches. The system next walks you through questions that probe for additional information that can be used to narrow the search for similar scenarios. While you're working the scenarios, incident updates, information about changing event conditions that you need to take into account may appear, just as they would during a real event. Now that we've established the purpose of the Recognize step in the decision process, let's take a closer look at the Recognize page. Notice again that the 6 steps of the AlphaACT HAZMAT decision process are shown along the top of the page, with the page that we're on highlighted. As you can see, the Recognize page is divided into 3 areas. The first area to note is the area along the top of the page where the system will ask you questions. The second area, located on the bottom of the page, displays the top 5 events selected by the system based on the information you already input on the Characterize page. The third area, along the right side of the screen, is the dashboard. As you'll notice, it's similar to the dashboard on the Characterize page. I'll discuss each of these areas and their features. AlphaACT HAZMAT presents questions in this topmost area that it then uses to help narrow its search for appropriate events. The questions are designed for yes or no answers, although they also give you the option for uncertainty. In fact, you'll note that the answers are set by default to the question mark to represent that uncertainty. Remember that AlphaACT HAZMAT can handle ambiguity, so if you're not sure about the answer to a question, just leave the answers set to the question mark. Since visual clues can help clarify questions, AlphaACT HAZMAT includes images to illustrate many of the questions it asks. Questions with an associated image have a little camera icon beside them. If you click the camera icon, AlphaACT HAZMAT will display the picture. To answer a question, click the radio button for either yes or no. If you don't know the answer to a question or you aren't sure, leave it set to the question mark, which essentially means I'm not sure. Once you've answered the questions, click Submit. After considering the implications of your answers, the system will present more questions, which you can then answer. One thing to note, the system will continue asking questions until you decide you found a good enough case. You are the one who has to decide when it's time to move on. The bottom of the Recognize page shows the top 5 events that best match the information you've input so far. It also shows you the event characteristics it's basing its match on. This includes the event type, the weather conditions, the terrain type, the type of substance, the physical state of the substance, the type of containers involved in the event, and the number of containers involved in the event. Along the very bottom of the page is the first indication of the possible consequences of the event, shown as the radii of the isolation zone and the protective action zone for each of the top 5 events. So how do you know how close you are to determining what might be a good enough event match? There are 2 things on the Recognize page that help you determine that: the convergence meter and the confidence meters. The convergence meter is located along the top of the Recognize page. The convergence meter shows your overall progress towards identifying a good enough event with a useful protective action zone and isolation zone. It's like a thermometer tipped over on its side. The farther the dark bar moves to the right, the better your matches are. Every time you answer questions, AlphaACT HAZMAT recalculates its metrics and adjusts the level of convergence. The confidence meters appear along the top of the 5 events. Like the convergence meter, The confidence meters also show how close you are to identifying a good enough event. The difference is that they show the system's relative confidence on a case-by-case basis. Before you leave the Recognize page, you'll select up to 3 of the events that the system believes to be among the top 5 best matches. Your decision, and the correct point at which to make it, will likely be based on what the convergence meter and the individual confidence meters tell you. When you're ready to select the events you want to carry over to the Analyze step, you'll select them by clicking the little checkboxes that appear just above the confidence meters. However, we're not quite done yet with the Recognize page. There's one more area we said we'd review. The dashboard on the Recognize page is very similar to what appears on the Characterize page. It shows the date and time, and below that the timer that continues to track how much time has elapsed since you began the scenario. You'll also find the notepad and the incident report, which we discussed in the last module. There is something new, however, the Incident Updates link. Incident updates may appear while you're working a scenario. They're meant to represent the kind of changes you need to adapt to during a real event. In AlphaACT HAZMAT, they appear here on the Recognize page and other pages we have not yet discussed. You open the incident updates just like you do incident reports. One way is to click the red arrowhead located to the left of the incident update's name. The incident update will open in a compact view. If you prefer a more complete view, you can open it into an expanded view. To open an expanded view of the incident update, click the icon on the upper right side of the panel. Once the window expands, you can drag it to a new position by the bar at its top. Once you've finished your tasks on the Recognize page, you click Analyze to move to the next page. This completes our review of the Recognize page. As a quick recap, the purpose of the Recognize page is to find similar events to the one you're working on, so you can select one to use as the basis for your own scenario-specific decision. You'll answer questions posed by the system to help it narrow its search for the best possible events. The events presented by the system at the bottom of the page will change as you answer questions. Based on the convergence meter and the confidence meters, you can decide when you've narrowed the list of events to the right ones to analyze. When you're ready, you can select up to 3 of the events for analysis. On the Recognize page and other pages, you'll have to stay alert to information about changing conditions presented through incident updates shown on the dashboard. In the next module, we'll discuss the Analyze page.